Welcome to Cozy Podcast. My mommy Shan.
Hey!
My sister Ari.
Say hi, Ari.
Hey. And I'm Anya.
Let's go! Hey, welcome to Cozy Womb Podcast. My name is Shan, and today we have a very special episode for you. We have our first guest. We will be having Jason from daduniversity.com here with us today. We will be discussing a very special topic, dear and near to my heart, because I am a mother of two. And to all the other mothers out there, this is why we appreciate you. We are going to share what moms wish daddies knew while they were pregnant. Because we all need support and help from the fathers. We all want you to be there, and we want you to have a exciting, fun time, quote unquote, like we're having as we go along this process to see this beautiful baby at the end of these 9 months. So here are some things that we can do together to have a easier, less stressful, more exciting, more relaxing pregnancy is if we have that support. And these are some tips that we want to give fathers out there on how to be more supportive to the pregnant moms. So welcome to Cozy Womb Podcast. I do have a guest on here. You're our first guest, Jason from Dad University. And what I want is for people to get to know who you are and what is Dad University and why you got started.
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks for having me. I had my second child, so I have a 9-year-old daughter and an 11-year-old son, and it was right around the time I had my daughter, or we had my daughter, and I was really frustrated. I was very stressed out. Just with, all the stuff going on in my own life. We had a small kid. We had a 2-year-old. We now just added a second child. And I just got really frustrated with parenting and all of the different stresses that were going on. And I just knew that there had to be a better way. And my wife actually had attended a parenting class through like a preschool that we were associated with. And she suggested I do it. And I went, and I just couldn't believe it was so eye-opening. Even though I had come from what I had considered a wonderful family and had 2 loving parents.
Right.
Just this idea that I could do things in a different way. I could do things in an actually structured way where I could be less stressed. And really understanding the child, and understanding this little thing that was here that I just didn't associate with. I wasn't around children very much. I didn't babysit. I had 2 older sisters, and the first child I had ever held was probably my sister's. So I just, I was a bachelor for so long. I wasn't familiar with children. And this was sort of the impetus. And I started a meetup group locally. I then started a weekly podcast, and that was years ago. And then I started doing YouTube videos. I just felt like there needed to be more, and that's when it kind of took off. I started doing YouTube videos and just going through a lot of what I went through, what I learned. If there was topics that I'm interested in, I dive in and I try to learn as much as I can. And it's just been rewarding and been great, and trying to help dads where I can. So.
That sounds good, and I think a lot of dads need it. I don't think a lot of dads are open to going to classes having to do with children, because I think society pushes it automatically to be on the woman, and then the guy is only supposed to provide the house or provide financially. But it's I was
the only guy in the class, I will say.
See, I think it's way beneficial when both a mom and a dad can help out and pick up where one person leaves off. So I think more parents going to classes like that will be way beneficial, because it just leaves a lot of room for arguments to pop up when, dads may not understand why something has to be done a certain way, or if there's an easier way to do it when they're just looking at it at one perspective. So that's pretty good. I'm glad that you did that.
Yeah, I what I realized probably the most is how much it helped me. It wasn't so much like, oh, I know how to parent now, and I know, all the things that need to be done. It was really like, wow, like I could stress less, I could get less upset. My anger was reduced. I mean, there's all kinds of things that came out of it, which I just really personally benefited from. And so those are the things that I started focusing on with other dads. Even if it's selfish, it's like, no, this is really helping me. It's like, I am really, yeah, sure, it's going to help my kid, my wife, and great, but it's really going to help me. And so that was really the initial part, was that, and just kind of come to that realization that learning these things could make my life a lot easier.
Yeah, and that's the thing, that if the parents are less stressed, your kids are automatically going to be less stressed. Oh,
for sure.
Yeah, because they always look to like the parents to see like, is everything okay? If they don't look okay, then they're gonna be all over the place. So like what would you say is like your favorite thing now about being a dad and just being in your own groove of things?
It's seeing the I'd say the work that we put in as parents. I guess use the word paying off, where even seeing my son, like the other day, a friend of his was having some difficulties and he went over and I just watched it, and like where he was really empathetic towards his friend. And, those are things that I'd like to think that my wife and I are teaching them, and teaching my kids. And so those are the kinds of things for me as a parent that are just the most rewarding, is when you see your child do something that you've spent so much time and effort, and granted, some of these things just come naturally, but there's other things that don't. I mean, my kids have learned some skills and some things that I think some other children might not get to, just because of the type of work I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And that's really exciting when they can help other people and it has a positive impact on them,
Yeah. Set that example.
Paying it forward. Yeah.
So, what made you continue, Dad University, from going to the podcast to doing the YouTube channel? And do you have a lot more dads that, give you feedback on the YouTube channel, or is it like the same balance with moms and dads?
No, my audience is very dad centric. It is primarily dads. I do get, there are women who certainly comment and watch and such, just because a lot of the material can be used for both genders, but certainly a lot of the stuff that I talk about is from the perspective of the male, and dad. And so, but I think a lot of women, I will say a lot of women, that their feedback is extremely positive, because, I'm trying to get dads more involved. I'm trying to get dads to help the wife or help, the mom, or however. For women usually, really appreciate the work being done. But to answer, as far as continuing, is just because I saw what was going on in the result. I mean, what was happening was people were beginning to comment and email me and contact me and just really basically say how great the information was, or how much it helped them. And that just kind of kept me going. I felt like there was more to do. And of course, for me personally, it keeps me in check a lot too. Doing this kind of work, it reminds you constantly of the things that you're trying to work on. And, I have struggles all the time. Whether it's arguments or the way that I handle something. And so these kinds of situations we all deal with. And so I have just found, for me personally, that doing this work has, allowed me to have a better relationship with my wife, have a better relationship with my kids. And so I plan on continuing that as long as it benefits me and other people. It doesn't seem like there's any reason to stop.
Okay. That's pretty good. I know I appreciate it when I came across it, and I was just like, wow. I was like, where was this when I was pregnant and I couldn't get it through his head that like it has to be done this way, or there's an easier way to do it. And I think when, women find out that they're pregnant is automatically a different wave of thought. And then when a man understands that a woman has his child and, okay, what do? I don't know anything, or I have to be this person now. And it's really, yes, you have to think of in the future, but you're still yourself. You just have to figure out a plan. And the best thing to do is plan together with the mother and the father, because if you guys are on the same plan, you can basically ride the waves together.
Yeah, it certainly is a lot easier when you're both on the plan together. That's for sure. Pregnancy in general, I mean, forget about once you have the child, but pregnancy in general, it's just a huge change for both, for both the man and the woman. It's, forget about the hormonal changes that she has to go through and the physical and all that. There's emotional changes. There's the responsibility. I mean, there's so many things that we're not taught. We're not taught how to handle a lot of these things. And as men, certainly we don't a lot of times make the effort until it's too late. Or it already happens. So it's not like we're thinking about having a family, and so we go and we learn all these things. That's not the typical male. I'm sure there are some out there. The typical male will wait until something happens and then go, oh crap, what should I do?
Right.
That's just how we roll, and that's a common way. And so I can't speak for the women, but I can speak
This is so good. Like, this is so much good information. Are you writing this down? Okay. I'm gonna go back.
So men typically prepare, way too late, as if it's in their relationship and they wait until they're about on the brink of divorce, and then they say, oh, well, maybe I should do something, versus they should have done it 3 years prior. So men are usually a little bit late in acting. And so that's kind of the same thing, I think, with parenting, is that we kind of wait till there's an issue and then we'll deal with it. So the idea is to be a little bit more proactive, and whether that's through the pregnancy or through the birth or, through the various stages for your child. Dad University's ploy is to just be a little bit more proactive. So
sounds like a plan, and I will be telling a lot of new dads about it.
Awesome.
So what I really wanted to get into was what's mom's wish that they wish dads would know while they were pregnant. And so what I did is I talked to a lot of different moms to see what their experience was. And I'm just going to go over a few things that they said, and then we can just talk about feedback on what your experience was. So the first thing that they said is never assume you know what a woman is going through. Just ask. Yeah.
So probably the biggest thing I talk about on my videos and podcasts and everything is empathy. And for those that don't know, I mean, being empathetic means that you put yourself in somebody else's shoes and look at things from their perspective. And so I think pregnancy is an absolute, it's absolutely important for the men to be empathetic, and because they can't really imagine the physicalness, the hormones, the emotion, all of the things that happen with a woman. And I think that can really help if you are empathetic. So yeah, for sure. That's a big one.
Yeah. For me, I don't think they assumed. I think they just stood there not knowing what to say. And it was like, okay, well, what do you need me to do? And
I think there's a problem though, because see, I've talked to a lot of the women I've talked to, it's mixed. I mean, it's half and half, maybe, that some of them have difficulty asking for the help.
Yeah.
So, there's just different types of people, and some are totally fine and say, no, I need you to do this. This is what I need, or this is what I need help with, while others just don't feel comfortable doing that. And I think that maybe is something to address too, is it's okay to ask for help. I mean, whether you're a man, woman, anything. I mean, it's okay to ask for help, and especially with your partner. And many times it's very important to ask for help.
Yeah, it's very important, especially when, you're pregnant, because anything can happen. So
Right.
the second thing they had was, we will hate your voice, your smell, your laugh, your presence, the way you move your face. And it's not that we don't like you as a person, it's just the mood swings sometimes that women go through when they're pregnant. It's just something they can't really explain why they're upset.
Yeah. I would add to that. It's not just you. It's, I mean, all kinds of things that can be, different and effective. You can't battle hormones. I mean, say on my thing, I said, just don't even try. It's just, you're not going to win, and there's so many, and all women are different. I mean, some women have crazy, emotional changes. Others have physical stuff that they have to deal with. Others, the mood and up and down. And I mean, it's very unpredictable. And so I think, and it can be different to pregnancies. I mean, my wife's first pregnancy was very different than the second, and so that can be different too. And so I think for the man, that can be tough. And so for that, I guess what's the advice is to just maybe not take things personally. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's the best way to do it. It's hard sometimes not to, especially when you're going through it and someone's yelling at you. It's hard as a man or as anybody just to sit there and take that and not feel like it's personal. Yeah. But if you can, then all the power to you. You're going to be much better off.
All right. What about this one? Women suggest men to go to as many appointments as you can and do not make us ask you or beg you to go to appointments.
Yeah, I think for some women, and probably a majority of them, they feel like that, that's how the man can support them during that time. And I think, everybody probably wants to feel supported in some way. So yeah, I mean, I think that there are some women that would be probably very important. And then there's probably some women that wouldn't care. And so maybe that's part of it, is communicating and saying like, hey, is me going to the appointment something that you would like me to do? Because I mean, just to go for just to go and she doesn't really care, then it's a waste of time. So, I mean, for that woman who said that, obviously she cared.
Yeah. Like I just never wanted to be like, I would always tell them like 2 months in advance, I have an appointment this time. And then the appointment will come up and then he'll be like, well, I can't go. And then after the appointment, be like, I never feel included. And I'm just like, but I told you.
Right. Well, yeah, you can't win. I mean, that's, you can't win on that. I recall with my wife, some of the appointments were important and others were not. And I recalled I said, tell me then, if I'd love to be a part of it if you, and so but I recall that there was appointments where she wasn't concerned. She would say, no, I'm just going to go after work or whatever. And it wasn't a big deal. Other ones where it's like, no, I'm going to find out this, or I'm going to do this. And so for sure I was there,
Yeah. I think the appointments like after like 32 weeks, I don't think that it's like really important for the men to go, but the other ones where you get to see like the updates on the ultrasound and the heartbeat and things like that, I think those are important.
Yeah.
Okay, the fourth thing was ask before and after you leave us if we need anything. I think pregnant women always need things.
Yeah, and even if they don't, they'll ask for something. I think that's just part of I think for some women, it's a way to feel like he's engaged with the process, and so they may use that as a, and here's the thing too, you have to know your woman's love language. Like if the love language, which I'm not sure, if everyone's familiar with it, but the love languages, the 5 love languages, if her love language is like an act of service, which means she loves the fact that you do things for her. She doesn't care about presents. She doesn't care about how you talk to her. She cares about if you do things for her, then that's going to be really important, and so for helping her and, hey, what can I help you with? Or what can I do? That's going to be real important. So I think that just, that again, it depends. And that's the thing too. You have to know your woman. You have to know what she wants and communicate that.
Most definitely. The fifth one they had is to be proactive. That's basically being prepared and consistent with a solution and emotionally available. A lot of moms are saying that the dads were not emotionally available. It's like they were physically there, but emotionally, it's like no connect.
Well, so here's where I will stick up for the men in that the men are going through their own difficulties during this process. Mm-hmm. So what will seem like emotionally unavailable could be fear, anger, scared, whatever, because they have their own stuff that they're going through about the pregnancy. And so, it could be about the pregnancy, about the relationship, whatever. So I think part of that may be that if a woman was a little bit more empathetic, just the same, I'm asking guys to be more empathetic. If the woman was more empathetic, instead of saying, hey, you're just not emotionally there, because that's what happens a lot. It's more of a blame versus saying, if a woman came to the guy and said, hey, honey, like, how is this for you? Like, I want to understand what's going on with you, and how do you feel about this? She's got to be prepared for the answer. That may be a little bit easier for him versus like, hey, you're just not, why aren't you being, sharing this with me? Or, it has to come in a positive way versus like a negative or sort of like that he's doing something wrong. And I think just in the same way that men aren't empathetic towards the wife and understanding what she's going through, through pregnancy, everyone's like concerned about themselves. Look at it as like, how is my life going to change? Especially if it's their first, how is my life going to change? What am I going to do? What's the financial responsibility for all this? How is this going to affect my job? How is this going to affect me hanging out with my friends? Like, there's so many things that he's thinking about that I think it's important for both sides to kind of step up and be like, hey, tell me what's going on. What are you, how can I help?
Yeah, I definitely asked that, but what you need from the dad on the other end is him to be open to wanting to talk. And sometimes men don't want to talk to make themselves look like manly, like they have it all together. But the reality is, my child's dad, he was depressed for like 6 months of me being pregnant. So it's basically me having a child and being pregnant by myself. And then after a while, he started like getting into it. And it wasn't until like a year or so later, we can actually talk about the fact that what we were experiencing separately while I was pregnant. And then now he understands my point of view. So I think it's just one of those things where, everybody has to have a say or talk it out. Do you guys understand how happy I am inside that there's a man out there leading and teaching other men that there is a better way to be a good parent, to be a partner? Oh!
After you guys then were able to talk about it, did he give you any indication about what would have helped him? Or was there not really an opportunity?
No. I think her dad, he really didn't have any plans on having any more kids. He just turned 40 this year. And the fact that he was having another kid, he wasn't at all prepared for it. And I think it just rocked his whole outlook on what he was going to do going forward. That it was like his mind was battling not wanting to do it and doing it and working when he didn't want to work and showing up certain places when he didn't want to show up. And it was kind of like everybody's pulling him where they need him, and he didn't have like that space for himself that he was used to. So I think that was the hardest adjustment that he was having. Also,
sure,
when somebody's used to doing everything that they want to do, and then all of a sudden they have to do a lot that they have to do, that's a whole mental change and frustration.
Yeah, for sure. That can be hard. So I wonder if it could have been any different. I mean, during that process, I guess if you had been, or were you empathetic towards him, or was it a battle, in that sense?
No, I think we had enough space to where, he had his space if he wanted it. But, when we did have that time to kind of like relax and spend time with each other, it was like, now I get to like vent, and then he would want to vent, and it's kind of like, well, now this is not a relaxing time because we're basically venting when we should be relaxing. So I'm just glad that she's here, and now we know where we were mentally and emotionally, right. And now it kind of like makes sense. So, but this is one of the things you have to do. That communication is a big factor.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Number 6 was foot rubs unless she hates her feet being touched.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I mean, if she doesn't like that, then certainly massage or back rub or something like that would be helpful.
Yeah.
With no intention of being intimate. That you have to add that.
Right, because then it seems like you're doing it to get something and not doing it because
right.
you want to.
Right. You may set yourself up for the next day, something like that, but
right.
But you cannot expect anything from it.
Right.
That's learn. So that's a good one. Yeah.
The 7th thing was understand that pregnancy will change any woman's perspectives, goals, and thoughts. We are never the same as we were before. I think that could be, I mean, you're the same person, but there's just, okay, this I don't believe anymore. Or, okay, I'm changing my perspective on this. Or, okay, I don't want to do this first. I want to do this first. I think that changes, but
yeah, I don't think who you are, who you are, or sometimes, I mean, of course things are going to change because you now are responsible for another human being. And so, your priorities might change, sure. Or they should change, I should say. But yeah, I mean, I can understand somebody feeling that way of like, well, I was going down this road, and then all of a sudden, now I'm pregnant and I'm going to have a child. And now and sometimes they think of, I would be curious if that woman's thought process was negative or positive about the change. So it's meaning like, I'm going to be able to do what I thought I was going to be able to do.
Yeah, some of them were positive, and some were negative. Like for me, when I was pregnant with my first daughter, before I was like, I want to have like a whole team of boys. And then when I got pregnant and every month was a new symptom, I was like, I never want to have another kid ever again. Like, she's the only one. And then I gave birth and I was like, nope, never again. And then I want to say 3 years later, her sister came. And I was like, oh man, I was like, who signed me up for this? I don't want to do this. And I remember being in the labor and delivery room like, okay, I just don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. It's now that changed my perspective. Now I'm just like, I don't think I'm built to keep having kids for the sake of having a boy. Like my mom, she had four of my brothers, and I was the 5th, and I was a girl. And she told me that she was going to keep having kids until she had a girl. I don't have that in me to keep having kids for the sake of having a boy. Right.
Yeah. No, I mean, I understand. That's, and everyone's different when it comes to that. So, you have to, and every child wants to feel like they're wanted anyways,
Yeah.
And you're going, I mean, the one thing about childbirth is, or having a child is just, it's a one-way door, versus like, you get married, there's certainly divorce. There's certainly, there's ways to change it. But, when you have a child, it is your child, I mean, certainly there's adoption and things like that. But it's your child forever. And so, that's the one-way door that you go through. And of course, things are going to change. And, but I couldn't now. I mean, I can't imagine my life without them. Okay. I mean, granted, I might be a little bit more relaxed, with my wife and I in the Caribbean, I mean, who knows? But realistically, I just can't imagine it without them now. I mean, it's just that's how it goes. I don't need more. Although I probably could, but I mean, it's not going to happen. But I probably could. My wife said, she was done. So she loves the two. She said, I said, so if you're going to have more, it's not going to be with me. So, so she's done.
Once the wife says no, then that's a no. That's a closed door.
Right. Right.
Number 8 was please wake up with the baby for changes, bottles, so we can rest, and take the baby with you if you're prepped to go.
Yeah, it's interesting. I had always thought about double duty and like I'll get up and I'll do this, and there are certain advantages to that, but at the same time it was interesting, and I was quite surprised because my mother was the one who said it, and I'm glad it came out of her mouth instead of mine, because I mean it ended up working out. But she said, why should 2 of you be zombies? Like, so at least if you do that, like manage it so that instead of you both being zombies at the same time, like you could alternate it, or and so she was the one who really talked about scheduling, so that you're it's not like you both have to get up and feed the baby. Like if one gets up, let the other one sleep, because if they're going to go to work or something. So I think that kind of thing, as far as time management and scheduling, would be really important, so that you are helping out, and when I say helping out, that sounds like it's not yours. I mean, it's like, it's not really helping out. It's responsibility, unless you are breastfeeding, and there's not much then the man can do other than like sort of help you, get comfortable or whatever. It is. It's what can you do in those off days? I remember with my wife, I mean, she took those nights. She just did. I was working full time. She wasn't, and so she took those. And then what we would often do is then on Saturdays, I would take the kids and get up, and then she would sleep in, or vice versa, or whatever. So like there was a way to try to do it so that she would get her own time, but it wasn't easy. I mean, I definitely had. I had the long straw on that one, where she was willing to sacrifice a little bit of that sleep for the fact that I was still working full time. So, that was hard.
It is a sharing process. My mom helped me out a lot with my daughters, and what I did when I was breastfeeding was I pumped and I stored it like in the fridge or the freezer. That way, if I wanted to sleep, if she was hungry, she could go get it, or he can go get the bottle.
For sure.
It was just like an easier transition. And also, sometimes you don't know how you'll be feeling the next day. And if there is like access to getting the baby's bottle and getting the baby changed and somebody else having the baby, that's a big help. But that's one of those things where, people have babies and they think, okay, that's done. But it's a whole nother adjustment with, the demand that the baby wants for the first. There's a whole other adjustment. So any help is good help.
Yeah, for sure.
Number 9 was help us around the house, chores, other kids, laundry, dishes, cooking. Just being like intuitive about like what's going to need to be done, or what I would do or how I would do it. That takes a load off, because I felt super in demand from everybody. Man, I'm going to be so sad to see Jason go, but I just think it's so refreshing to hear a man's point of view going through the whole pregnancy process and to having a newborn and raising a kid, just to have a fresh perspective that we pregnant moms and new moms, we don't expect for the dads to know everything. We just want you to be open to learning a better way, to understand that there's an easier way to dad. There's an easier way to dad. And this is all that he's saying. And please, all moms, please tell him about Dad University, that there is a place for dads to vent, to talk, to figure out that there's an easier way. He found a stress-free way. Go look him up. Dad University.
So what I find interesting is that I just bring this up because, I deal with, I don't want to say the perspectives of men and women a lot and such, as even the way that those questions are phrased, it is making the assumption that the woman is doing all of the work and the man is helping her.
Right.
And that's some of the issue, is that this is a 50-50 deal. And granted, when you have a newborn and you're breastfeeding, it doesn't feel like that. And sometimes because the mother takes on the majority of the responsibilities a lot, but the truth is that that's not how it should be. And so that's what I often find interesting, because I'm looking at it from a different perspective. It's like, this is our child. We have a 50-50 deal with this child. And so it's not really help unless you're, and the reason it could be that is like maybe their traditional roles where he is working more often, she is typically at home. And so in that sense, he would be helping her do some of the things that she would normally do. But it's always interesting when you find, whether it's a stay-at-home dad or working mom or however the split is, I always find that interesting, because this is a 50-50 deal. Like, both are responsible for the house. If you live together, and you're both responsible for the house, you're both responsible for the child. And so that's where, whether it's a man or the woman asking the question or making the statement, it's always interesting. Because I don't make the assumption that it's like that it's the woman's job and then it's the man's job to help her.
It definitely tells you, how a household is ran by what the needs are. When I was talking to a lot of these moms, a lot of them were talking about how they sometimes just want to vent, and they don't necessarily need you to respond or say something back, or they just don't want to feel like, their problems are small compared to your problems. It's just more balance, I think, would help. Definitely a lot of moms were more so saying, do not make them feel like a thing. Like, she still wants to go out on dates. She still wants to hang out with you. She's still like the person before the baby. And I think a lot of fathers, they get caught up in doing for the baby, not that the baby's out, but then they forget like there's a whole person there that like loves them and wants to hang out with them and wants quality time. So I think a lot of balance in that.
For sure. Yeah, that's a good point.
Another point that they made is to get all of the mom's contacts in case of emergency, doctors, best friends, and parents, just in case something happens where you're not near or you're not around. And I don't know how many fathers, while the mom was pregnant, had that information, and it wasn't just more so on the mom, where they can just, go ahead and call or go ahead and be prepared.
Yeah, no, for sure. You have like an emergency list or a contact list or something like that, which now, with a phone, that's pretty easy to do.
Yeah.
Just having like all the information written out, here's the pediatrician. Those are all good suggestions for sure.
Yeah. And the last one that they had was, do not make her feel weird for having crazy cravings. Did you have to do any like crazy craving runs?
I did. They weren't. Well, I shouldn't say they were crazy. They were just, just very consistent. My wife's was a chocolate covered caramel apple during my second child, and literally every day she had to have one. So I had to go down to like the corner market and get one, or I would just get it coming home from work. And that's just, she wanted that every day. So, or I made her a breakfast and egg sandwich. That was the other thing, which, and it wasn't almost every day, but it was pretty close. And she always loved that. And so, Those were the things that I was in charge of for sure. But those were things that were easy. Those were easy things. She didn't have any really weird cravings.
Mine were like lots of crushed ice and Reese's. Her dad would bring that to my house a lot. Or having like baked macaroni and cheese at 4 a.m. It was really weird. It was very weird, and I just wish it would not be there. But it's just like one of those things where if you don't do it, you're just not satisfied.
It is weird how the body does that. It's just so strange to like whatever the chemical is that causes that craving. The mix within the body. It's an amazing thing that happens during pregnancy.
Yeah, it's very weird. It's like someone's completely taken over your body.
For sure.
So from your perspective, what tips do you have for dad? Like any quick tips that you have for new dads dealing with a pregnant mom?
Well, I think some of the things that we talked about are definitely spot on. I mean, it's the empathy, for new dads or a soon-to-be dad is, just looking at things from her perspective. I think that when you become a lot less selfish, and when you're not focusing on yourself and you're focusing on other people, those around you are going to really benefit from that and feel good. And so, that's the job often of the relationship is just to support each other. So I think you can do that through looking at things from the other person's perspective. You say, well, that's not something that I care about, but obviously if she cares about it, then I'll make, then that's important. And I think that's probably one of the most important things. I think for women, showing the involvement and the activity is really important. Like I said, I made that statement about being 50-50. Mm-hmm. And so that is, it's not babysitting your child, it's fathering your child.
Exactly.
And so that's the other part is just being involved and, hang with the child on your own. That's the other thing I recommend is, and even for the moms to like give the child to the baby by themselves and let them handle it. If anything too, they'll have a greater appreciation if the mom is staying at home or the mom is the one who's doing most of the work. Nothing will make you appreciate it more by, spending hours and hours with a baby. It's not as easy as you think. And
you get to see what that demand is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're in a constant, especially newborns. I mean, it's a constant need of attention or food or sleep or whatever. You're constantly having to do things, changing. So I think those are sort of the important things for new parents. And as you evolve in the relationship, obviously there's much more, and that's kind of a lot of the things that we talk about. But planning, just communication too. Don't assume anything. It's always better to ask or talk about it. So that's something that I recommend as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Perspective. So I'm glad we did this episode together. Can you tell everyone where to find you and where to watch the show?
Yeah, so I'm on all social channels, but you can go to daduniversity.com and you can just find us there. My YouTube channel is really Dad University YouTube channel is where there's now over 100 videos on various topics, and a lot of it is about for new parents and new dads, and, but certainly the moms, if they're listening, they can get a lot out of it as well.
Awesome! Thank you for doing the show at Cozy Womb today.
Right on. That was fun.
Hopefully we'll do another episode very soon. Thank you guys for listening to Cozy Womb Podcast. Please let us know your thoughts at 470-210-8752 or on Instagram at Cozy Womb Podcast or Twitter at Cozy Womb Pod. Or you can definitely email us at cozywombbmama@gmail.com. See ya! Bye!
Bye!